Hi, everyone. Wow, it's so nice to see all of you here physically after these 2 very rough years. So glad to be here today seeing real faces. So I'd really like to know you guys better. So just let's start with a short poll. Raise your hand if you have at least one extension installed in your browser. At least one extension. Wow, all of you. So keep your hands up, keep your hands up. That's some sports. So take your hand down if you ever read the code of these extensions. Ever try to read the code of the extensions? Okay, so also now keep your hands up. If you take your hand down, only if you check the extensions, what they can do, you read the terms of usage. Yeah, I see most of the people still have probably a few extensions and you have no idea what they can do or what they actually do. Well, I was exactly like you. Just a few years ago, I got a mail from a friend, a colleague, who told me the title of the mail was, "What a great extension." I opened the mail, and I found there a recommendation for a very cool extension, which you can actually see the code that you write, how it's going to be rendered in different browsers. Well, I thought this is a great extension, immediately downloaded the extension, and used it. Then I saw another extension, a ruler, so you can measure your screen from one point to another. I didn't think twice, also added this extension, and color picker, everybody needs a color picker, another extension, JSON parser, another extension, and more and more and more and more and more extensions. At the time, I thought that every extension is just a tool in my toolkit, so it will make me a better developer and make my work more efficient. So adding extension is just great. Until Hack Week. So I worked for Dropbox, and in Dropbox, we have every year 1 week for a hackathon. It's an extended hackathon when you can work for 1 week on everything you want, literally everything you want, from improving the product, new feature you want to push, maybe closing some tech debt, everything. At that Hack Week, I decided to work on a nice extension that will let me manage my tasks. The extension was really nice. It was beautiful, and it was a great success. It had so many downloads, actually 1 download. It was me. I was the only one using this extension, Hack Weeks. But from every success, or shall I say success, you can still learn some lessons. And the lessons I learned from that week, I had 2 lessons. One, how easy it is to build an extension. Really, it took me I started the week without knowing anything about extensions. After 2 hours, I had something actually working. And after a day, I have all the core features I want for my extension. So for the rest of the week, I just added more and more extensions, which leads me to the second lesson, how powerful these extensions can actually be. I added more and more features, so every feature I added, I was shocked. Really? Can extension do this? Adding another feature, really? Can extensions also do that? So this is exactly what we're going to do today. We'll start by building a simple extension, and then we're going to turn this extension into a malicious one. And we're not going to publish it. The goal here is not to turn all of you into hackers or really bad people, but to rethink extensions, understand how powerful they are, and why you should rethink about extensions every time you download a new extension. So let's start. But any ideas what should we build today? So I really like football. Maybe something that will show us scores. I also like hiking. Maybe something that will show me tracks around me. I don't know. I also like diving, especially sharks. They're my favorite animal. So maybe something that will show me where sharks are around. But this talk is not about me. It's about all of us. So I thought maybe we should build something that all of you like to do, which is online shopping, right? Who doesn't like online shopping? So whenever I go to online shopping, especially with international sites, I have this problem when I see the price, and it's always in different currencies, right? So this is, for example, Amazon COUK, and I'm not getting any commissions from them. It's just a random example, a random site. So what we're going to build today is something that will help us do shopping online by converting the currencies. So as you can see here, the first thing we want to do is to set. We go to buy something, this cute Kindle. Then we set the target currency. I come from Tel Aviv, so we use shekel, but I put some dollars here, US dollars. So you mark the currency, and as you see, it changes into dollars. Really nice. So we're in Paris. You use euros, so you can set euros and also mark the price, and it changes into euros. So let's start building it. But before we do, I want to such a small warning. The code you're going to see today it's really, I don't want to curse, but it's a piece of shit. Really, no TypeScript, no ES 5, 6, ECMA 2020, all the things you see, that can't promise. So I really want this code to be very simple. So even if you didn't write JavaScript in the last 5 or 6 years, you'll still be able to understand everything. Also, no edges covered. It's very buggy, I know. Don't look for bugs or edge cases and all that. I know developers sometimes really need to be nitpicky. Yeah, the code here is bad and there are many bugs. It's a buggy one. It's a buggy extension. So let's start. What is an extension? So actually, an extension is just a folder with one required file. That is the manifest.json. That's all you need for an extension. The manifest.json is the glue for the entire extension. It's a configuration file where you configure everything about the extension, from the name, the icon, the permissions, and the files you're going to use. So for the extension itself, it has 2 contexts. The first context is the core of the extension. The core has 2 parts. The first one is a pop-up HTML, what you're going to see when you press the icon for the extension. So that's a pop-up HTML, and you can also load some other JavaScripts. The other part is a background.js, which is something that runs in the background, and you can communicate with sending you can calling each other, you can calling the background from the pop-up HTML and vice versa. So this is the first context. Let's write it for our extension. So pop-up HTML, it's just an HTML, no magic here. We have a header and we have a dropdown, right? That's all we need for our extension. Just HTML as you ever seen it. And we also want to load a script, so we just calling a script. And in this script, once the HTML is loaded, we want to also take the current currency from the local storage. And once someone changes the dropdown, we save the currency to the local storage. So we're syncing our HTML with the local storage, so every time it goes up, it's synced. That's for the core context. And there's another function here, the conversion function in the background. So we're going to have this function. We're getting the from currency to currency and amount. And we want to return the new currency. So this is actually all the logic from changing from one currency to another. So what we're doing here, we're calling an XML HTTP request to some third-party application who brings all the exchange rates from a third-party application. Then we take this, we do some really simple math, and we're doing the conversion. So we have this function to do all the conversion logic. That's for the core context. And the other context is the content context, where you can actually, I think it's more interesting, but here is where you actually can interact with the user's page. So you can put a content.js file that will load after the page finishes to load. And in this file, you can put more JavaScript. In our example, we want to add an event to the document. Every time the user uses this event, the mouse up, we're going to take the selection, whatever they select. Then we're taking out the amount and the currency from it. Once we have the amount and the currency, what we want to do next is call the conversion function and inject the result into the DOM, right? But there's a small problem here, because as I told you, we have 2 contexts. They can call to each other. So what we can use is messaging. We can send messages from the content.js to the pop-up.js and to the background.js and vice versa. So let's do that. So from the content.js, once we have the amount and the currency, we're going to send a message. The first parameter is who we're going to send the message. We're sending here null because we're sending it to ourselves, to the same extension. The second parameter is the message itself. It's just a JSON, an object, sorry. So you can see here there's a type, amount, and currency. And the third one is a callback that will be called back. It will be called once we get an answer, which in our case is just like injecting the result to the DOM. This is the sender. So what about the response? So the receiver, sorry. So the receiver listens to all the messages coming in. Then it filters by the type. And if the type is get converted currency, we're taking the original currency, the original amount, the from currency, and we're taking the currency, the target currency from the local storage. All of them together, we send them to the conversion function, and we send back the response. Once the response is received by the content.js, it's going to be pushed to the DOM. That's all the code you need for an extension, actually. That's everything that you need for our extension. So let's see it again now that I hope you understand better how it actually works, the pop-up, and what you do on the content.js. Let's see it again. But now I'd be happy if you pay attention also to some small details. Cool. So did anyone see something really weird happening or something a little hacky? And shout, maybe I hear you. Shout if you've seen anything. Yeah, it's probably very hard to see, but now let's look at it again. Now I'd like to focus only in the URL bar. Only take a look in the URL bar. So I'm using a product I want to buy, and then something was added there. The tag equals some random code. This wasn't added by the user. It wasn't added by Amazon. It was actually added by my extension. I didn't show you that, but it was added my extension. And the reason I'm adding this is to kind of piggyback some like programs this commerce site has, which is the referral or the affiliate, where you can actually get some small amount of money from every time the user buys something. So they thought they're going to, they have like some really nice extension that only do currency conversion, but it actually brings some money to me as the extension developer. So let's see the code now, which I didn't show you. So it's really easy. Just like for whenever there is a URL request, before the request, we're taking the URL and adding a tag and our unique identifier. Then we filter only for, this is a filter, so you can add a filter Amazon CO UK. And obviously, you can add more and more sites if you want, and being affiliate in more sites. Cool. This is like the first malicious extension. But if you want to make like more money and not like a small amount of money, so maybe you can also redirect the user to your shop and making more money. Or if you're targeting the big money, you can also redirect them to some phishing site and steal their credentials. So this is the first way you can turn your extension into a malicious one. What's the next way? So we talked about listen to events from the browser. Also talked about calling third-party APIs, which leads us, keylogger, right? Keylogging. So you can listen to every time the user presses a key, send it a background script here, and then just send this key to my malicious server. It's based on Firebase, AV123. So everything is sent to there now, all the keys you press. Let's see an example. So on the left side, you can see the user. They still think they're using my extension for currency conversion. On the right side, you can see my Firebase database. And let's see. So the user doesn't suspect anything. Everything works as usual. But when they go to their bank account, oh, everything is sent to my server. And now I have the password, which is 123456. It's a great password. Thank you very much. Cool, so we can also listen to do some key logging and steal credentials from users. What else we can do? The next one is really cool. You can actually capture images from the user's tab. So let's see the code for that. Whenever the user is going to change a tab, I'm going to capture the visible tab, and I'm also going to send it to my malicious server. So here you see, just like sending like any like XML HTTP request, nothing special, sending it to my server. So in the left side now, you can see the user's browser. Now you can see that the extension is not, they don't see it anymore. Like they forgot they installed it, but it's still running there in the background. In the right side on the top, you can see my Firebase malicious server. And on the right side on the bottom, you can see just like some small gallery I built on top of this Firebase. So you can actually see the images. So whenever the user is going to change the tab, you're going to see an image sent to my malicious server. Whatever, like if they have like financial confidential data, an image is sent from their database of users, their private code, currency, like crypto, everything they have. And the worst thing you can think about, your embarrassing pictures from Facebook. Let's say there are some pictures you don't want like to send to malicious like servers, so let's keep it here. Although this is recorded. Yeah, this is very embarrassing. So, fortunately, or unfortunately, depends how you look on that, what malicious extension probably will do is not stealing your pictures, but they want to make some money. So how do they make money? The most common way is by distributing adwords or injecting adwords to your browser. If you ever like had malicious extension, you probably saw some adwords, weird adwords coming from nowhere. So adwords is the most common way. Also, some of them can collect data and sell your data to third-party companies. Another thing they can do, as we saw, like stealing credential, and some of them did it in the past. And like nobody can skip like the trend of cryptocurrency. So some extensions also used to do some mining in the background JS and trying to hijack a transaction or trying to steal your wallet secrets. But there's a reason you don't see everyday malicious extensions. Like you don't like everything you download is not malicious. We do have some mechanisms that can protect us. Probably the main one is a Chrome Web Store review. So in the Chrome Web Store review, there are three mechanisms. The first one is automatic review for every extension that is going to be uploaded to the Chrome Web Store. The second one for some of them is manual review. And the third one is report from users. This is why it's really important. If you see anything weird or hacky or malicious, please report it. All in all this together helped Google to achieve like 96.5% as they reported in 2015. But they're always trying to do better. So according again to the reports, they were able to decrease the percentage of malicious extensions by 70%. And they say that I saw some rumors they're using some like new mechanism and some machine learnings. I didn't see any proof of that. They didn't report anything officially, but machine learning is always cool to say. So I said machine learning. We talked about crypto, like Firebase, Lambdas. I think I covered all the buzzwords now, so we can continue. So as I said, I'm not going to help you actually publish your malicious extension. But from some researchers in the past, this is how malicious extensions bypass this Chrome Web Store review. The first thing they use is remote code by loading code from remote sites and not putting it as part of the extension. Then they also use dynamic code, where you take a string and actually load it as a code. In JavaScript, you have like eval, for example. So taking a string and actually load it dynamically. And obfuscation, the technique for taking a code and making it unclear to humans, but still readable by machines. So most of the extensions that bypass this Chrome Web Store review used all these techniques, and they almost always use the auto updates. So they start clean with a very efficient extension, trying to get more users, more good reviews. Once they have enough users, auto updates, you can control that. They're just going to push it into your machine. You can control the auto updates. So this is how you start small, you start with a neat and good extension, and once you grow, you can push your malicious code. But again, don't do it. It's illegal, and this is not the intention of this talk. But as I said, Google are always trying to improve, so they did some really good improvement in the last 2 years or 3 years. The first one, if you've seen it, so now you have more users controls, so you can actually right-click an extension and limit the extension from using specific sites if you want, not all the sites, only specific sites that you can choose, to not run in the background and things like that. The second thing they added, they're trying to force more and more developers to use very narrow scope permissions. Developers used in the past just a default, yeah, I want all the permissions in the world. So now they're blocking these kind of extensions and really forcing you to use only the permissions you need for your extension. So they're also blocked, like in the last 2 years, also extensions that use any obfuscation, taking like a code and turn it into this gibberish. You can still use minify if you want, or things that will make your code more efficient, but not anything that will make your code irreadable deliberately. Another thing that you're going to force, they also forced all the developers that would want to upload extensions to use two-factor authentication, so their accounts can be hijacked. And there's a also huge change that they announced around like 2018, going to manifest. So I showed you all the code was manifest v2, and they're going to change that to manifest v3. So this year, they're actually forcing this change. It's going to be one of the biggest change in extension through the years. So from the beginning of this year, every new extension must use manifest v3. And at the beginning of the next year, all extensions, even the one that exists, should use manifest v3, or they're going to be blocked. So there are many changes in manifest v3. It's probably all about that. But the 4 major changes, the first one is we saw the background.js, it's going to be turned into service worker, which will make it more modernized and more compliant with web technologies. Also going to support promises, so all the XML HTTP requests are going to be replaced by fetch. They're going to block all remote code loading, and they're going to use directive network API. So the code you see like for redirecting is going to be directive. It's going to be written by rules. Now, if you want to see the same extension that we built with manifest v3, you have it here. You have both versions in my GitHub. The first one is v2, and the second one is v3, so you can look at both and compare them. But yeah, this will not going to end anytime soon. Like Google will always improve, closing more holes in their security, and hackers will find more and more ways to break these rules and publish malicious code. It's like everlasting like race between a cat and a mouse, which moves the responsibility to us, users. So instead of thinking about extension as like something that just like extend your browser, you're adding it, just like something huge that's going to add more capabilities, you should start thinking about it as software. Like your browser now, probably like you're moving to work with more SaaS, your browser becomes like almost like operation system. Everything is in your browser, all your secrets, almost everything, sometimes your code. So instead of thinking about like add extensions, think about actually installing programs. You're actually installing software that has, like, as we saw, control almost everything in your browser. And when we think about software, if you think about it that way, everything that you know about installing software on your computer comes into place. Whenever you install something, think twice if you really need it. Not every small extension, every color picker worth the risk. Even if it's a small risk, think twice before you install anything. And before you install again, just like check the reviews, check star, check number of users, check the publisher, if you trust them or not. Also, remove anything you don't need. Don't have like tons of extensions that just like run in the background. Remove anything you don't need and turn off one that you temporarily don't use. Also, we saw some user control, so you can limit some extensions for specific sites or not to run in the background. And another trick I'm using is in Chrome, you can use multiple profiles. So I'm using one profile, very dirty profile with all the extensions I want, but I make sure that I don't load anything with secrets or anything confidential. So you can have like multiple profiles, one with many extensions, but making sure it's only like a sandbox to try things. And we are developers, right? Probably most of the people here are developers, so you can actually go and read the code and report if you see something malicious. So where do you find the code? Well, there are two links. One is finding it if you have a Mac. It's really easy, just like you need to look for it and find the code for your extensions in Microsoft, in Windows. That's it. So before we go, what we actually learned here, so what you can do next, go and build an extension as you saw. It's really easy. It's just a folder with one manifest JSON and a few more HTML, JavaScript. Really, really easy. Also, rethink extensions. Like, I really be happy if after this talk, you'll go and check, like for 5 minutes, just check what do you have there, remove the ones you don't need, limit the ones you still need, and next time before you install a new extension, think twice if you really need it and if you really trust the extension. And the most important thing, just be good. Like, again, don't try to you can play with everything locally. Don't try to publish malicious extensions, really. And if you're not sure, you can always read the policies. Everything is in there. Well, this was only the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to talk about extensions, about all the permission model, policies. There's also a blog by Chromium, which you can really follow updates and so on. Well, that's all. That was me. I really, if you follow me on LinkedIn. Thank you. So you can follow me on LinkedIn if you want, and if you have questions, really, you can ask me now. There are you have like 2 minutes for questions, but if you're shy or something, I will be happy to answer you on LinkedIn or also here if you want, anything.
First, thank you for the talk. Do you know if there is some reviews of Firefox extensions?
I'm not sure. Most of the things you see today, the architecture is really similar, but I'm not sure about like Firefox, like the review there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. How we can handle authentication on extension? So a user must be authenticated to use this extension.
What do you mean? Like, if you want the authentication for your site?
For the extension.
Yeah, so you can use I'm not sure I understand the question. Sorry. Like, if you want to build an extension with authentication to like your specific site. So yeah, it's like JavaScript. You can like also build like authentication, regular authentication inside the extension, if you want them to press a button. And I'm not sure if it's like that's what you're asking.
Yes, the user must enter his username and password.
Yeah, so you
must be able to use the authentication.
Yes, you can do everything inside the extension, everything that you want. Like you can have like everything, like all the authentication inside the extension, and it supports also like authentication.
Okay. One last question. We can touch the DOM of any website with the extension? Like,
yeah, I think it's
manipulate some stuff on the DOM.
Yeah.
And it's legal to do this on any website. For example, I can go to LinkedIn and implement my extension to retrieve some data.
So yeah, so the first question is about like if we can change the DOM of every page. So the answer is yes, except like the extensions page itself. Like when you open, like if you open like extensions in your right click, then you go to the extension where you see all the extensions. You can change this page, but for the rest of the pages, yeah. And it's legal for most of the pages. But again, depends what you, so the policies is not about like pages you can change or interact with, but it's more about like what you're doing there. You can't do anything. Probably all these things that we see like are going to be blocked, but you can go to any page that you want and do some manipulations, yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much. I'll be here if you have more questions, and at LinkedIn. I'd really be happy to answer every question. Thank you very much.